Think back. Do you remember where you were 1 year ago when our world changed? I do.
We want to get right to some serious business. The Oregon Health Authority saying that basically we may have our first coronavirus case in Oregon now.
And so does the medical team that treated that first case.
I had a text message from my colleague saying, call me ASAP, COVID positive. That's all it said.
It was pretty scary initially, to be quite honest.
You know what else happened a year ago? Oregon Republicans walked out of the legislature. Well, as they say, history repeats itself, because they did it again today. Here's the story.
Yes, sir. How we doing? Dan Haggerty here. Welcome to The Story. All the ways you get a hold of us at the bottom of your screen. Send me a message on Facebook if you'd like. You can use that hashtag HeyDan on Twitter or email us at thestory@kgw.com. And yes, I have seen all of your emails about how awful it was trying to sign up for the vaccine this morning, and we are going to get into that tonight. But we've got a lot to cover, so let's get right to our big story. And the big story is about our very first case of COVID in Oregon. This Sunday marks 1 year since we found out the virus was here in our area. We actually broke that story right here on this show, which was brand new at the time. The man who contracted the virus was just a normal guy, just like the rest of us, living his life, going to work, doing that sort of thing, when suddenly he was in the fight of his life against this unknown thing. And the doctors and nurses who fought with him were changed by that fight. Recently, some of them sat down with our Maggie Vespa and reflected back on Oregon's first case 1 year later.
One year ago today, life in Oregon was normal. Kids went to school.
The trailing Lillard for three.
Fans went to games. Masks weren't a thing. The news led with politics and weather.
Day 2 of the Senate Republican walkout, and now
55 behind Vancouver, Portland 54.
Not infection rates and vaccine rollouts, and certainly not 500,000 Americans dead of the same cause. That said, 1 year ago today, the virus was here. It was here at Oregon, and it was here at Kaiser Permanente Westside Medical Center in Hillsborough. But no one knew it yet. His name is Hector Calderon, and this is video of the day he left that Hillsborough hospital, having won his battle. Calderon was the first Oregonian to test positive for COVID-19. It happened 1 year ago this Sunday.
Had it hit you recently, or had it occurred to you that it's been almost a year exactly? Like, was that on your radar at all?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and it hasn't even hit me.
The doctors and nurses at Kaiser Westside were just as scared as the rest of us, especially Dr. Katie Scharf.
My children actually went to the school where Mr. Calderon worked.
Students at Forest Hills Elementary had heard their janitor was in the hospital. He'd been feeling sick for days. Dr. Scharf brought Calderon a get well card from her son's first grade class. That's when Scharf, an infectious disease physician, noticed oddities in his case.
What about his symptoms did not add up, or what struck you as odd?
You know, he was a young, healthy man and was so incredibly ill.
At that point, this new mystery virus had popped up in other states, including Washington. But ICU nurse Eric Cathy remembered thinking the idea of Calderon having COVID-19 seemed so far-fetched.
He's like,
still,
everything's coming back on this guy negative, and there's no reason why this young guy should be as sick as he is.
Doctors sent for a test just to be safe.
Our top story tonight, the first presumed case of coronavirus in Oregon.
February 28th was a Friday.
I had a text message from my colleague saying, call me ASAP, COVID positive.
KGW's Mike Benner's in the newsroom.
The news broke early that evening.
Yeah, it became surreal.
The reaction was swift. Industrial cleaning crews and hazmat suits scrubbed that Lake Oswego school. Cathy and those who had cared for Calderon were ordered to quarantine. They hadn't been wearing masks when he first arrived. There is something else you should know about Hector Calderon's case. In addition to being the first case in Oregon, he was also the second American to contract the virus without coming into contact with someone who had traveled. It's called community spread, and it was alarming.
And it was like, wow, this is really happening. It's here, it's not just, we can't contain it necessarily. It's now.
No one knew it then, but Calderon's battle would last months. After first experiencing symptoms on February 19th and testing positive on the 28th, the then 46-year-old would be on a ventilator for 60 days through March and April, the time when the rest of the world was effectively shutting down.
It was just a lot of teams and a lot of, just a lot of resources just to take care of just one person.
As patients piled up, Calderon's case proved just how ruthless COVID could be. He was one of the first Americans to be treated with remdesivir, an experimental drug later used on President Trump. Still, his road was hard, and staff were very afraid.
I've seen so many people in his shoes pre-COVID that could have wrote them off and said, they're not gonna, I could have bet my life on Calderon not surviving this hospital stay.
Dr. Scharf was getting questions at home.
Especially my son, who knew him well from school, would ask on a daily basis. Just trying to say, he's being cared for by an excellent team of healthcare workers, and they are all working their best for him.
That continued until early May. Then, a shift.
I do remember when he started to turn a corner.
After more than 2 months in the hospital, Calderon's condition started to improve. He came off the ventilator.
It was amazing to see him recover. Was such a great feeling.
May 5th, 2020, an announcement. Oregon's first COVID case would not be counted among the lives lost. Calderon gave this brief interview to Kaiser staff.
Thank you so much for all your hard work and dedicated all your time to me. My family and I, we are so thankful and thank you for everything. God bless you.
Minutes later, he left the hospital to a parade and a mariachi band. Staff had promised that to him throughout his battle. Hector Calderon's recovery continued after that day. He went to a skilled nursing center for physical therapy. Today, he is considered recovered, and he's back at work at Forest Hills Elementary.
The biggest lessons I learned from Hector, one is just how inspiring an individual patient can be to really, this sounds corny, but, it can really change your career and change your life to see someone so sick and then turn around like that.
Okay, Maggie Vespa joining us now. So we heard from Hector back in May when he was leaving the hospital, but I think a lot of people are curious about how he's doing now, all these months later.
Yeah, definitely. And we're told that he's doing really well. He's back at the school, he's back on the job, and we're told that he's recovered. He's basically declined interviews ever since he left the hospital, just asking for privacy, which we absolutely respect. We reached out just in case for this piece, and he declined again. And again, we understand. He did, through a district spokesperson, just issue a statement that said that he was grateful for all of the community support, and he's grateful for God. So we wish him well.
Absolutely. Maggie, thank you.
All right, let's talk about the vaccine. Now, based on my inbox, I'm going to guess this morning's sign-up situation didn't go all that well. We got so many messages from you about people battling the state's website, so we sent them to Pat Doris.
Well, we have heard from the audience today, have we ever? Hundreds of emails, mostly about how bad the Legacy site was trying to schedule those few vaccination shots that were available today. Let's jump into it. Lenny here says, got to the vaccine site this morning and was asked for an 8-digit code. Had a 6-digit code and got kicked off because apparently I needed an 8-digit code. Went to the website, got a new code, was still a 6-digit code and would not work. Tried several times and all I got was a 6-digit code. Finally got locked out of the site. Why? Excellent question, Lenny. I took that to the folks at Legacy and they said, Yeah, we don't know. They're actually working on it tonight, they said. The IT team is in there trying to figure out what's going on. They told me that the only reason you would need an 8-digit code is if you were trying to use a link from some other group with Inside Legacy to try and access the site for some reason. So, yeah, no, don't worry about it. You didn't do anything wrong, but you should not need an 8-digit code. You shouldn't even need a 6-digit code, as far as I know. I told them, though, that we've had people over the last couple of weeks have told us that they've been asked about this 8-digit code when they're in the site, and that may have been news to them. So they're working on it, but they don't have a solution yet. But it was not you. You didn't do anything wrong. George writes in and says, I'm 73, and this is the second day to try to schedule shots for my group. 9 minutes after hitting the schedule button at 9 a.m., the tab said I was on the Legacy login screen, but it was just blank. Then nothing. The state needs to schedule us, not us chasing appointments time and again through this broken system. George, I absolutely agree. You make an excellent point there. First, here's what happened to you. Legacy put in restrictions or controls on that website so that they didn't have hundreds of thousands of people all in there at once trying to get a few appointments and basically running into each other and destroying the way that the whole thing worked. That's what happened on Monday. So instead, when you tried to go in, it was already at its max capacity that they set, which was 3,800 people. And if you came in after that, you got that white screen, and then eventually it said, our site's very busy, you can't come in right now. And so that's why you saw that. By the way, there were still an enormous number of people that hit that site right at 9 a.m. trying to get in. In fact, so many that it caused chaos within the site. And even though there were only 500 appointments available, it took 90 minutes until they were all gone. It took 90 minutes because it was so convoluted and slow, and it was so hard for people to make appointments. So it's still not working right. Now, onto the point that you make as well about the state should be scheduling you instead of 75 and 80-year-olds chasing around, and 70-year-olds as well, chasing around for these very few vaccination appointments that are available in this area. I totally agree. And a lot of people who are eligible like you agree as well, because they've been emailing us all day long asking why the governor is still going to allow 65-year-olds, I think 258,000 of them, to join the eligibility pool on Monday. I asked the governor point blank about that last week. I'm going to ask her again tomorrow when we see her in a news conference. I don't think she's going to change her mind. But if the idea is to protect the most vulnerable people among us, the 70, the 80-year-olds, why not keep everybody else out until most of those people have gone through and been able to get appointments? Why make it such a circus and such a rolling train that can't stop? It can stop. You could put a pause in there. And that's why we're going to ask her tomorrow if the governor would kindly consider that. Again, I don't expect she will, but I hope she will. And your questions help us help ask that question. Almost didn't get that part out. That's what's going on in the COVID vaccine today.
Thank you to Pat, as always. All right, let's do our daily vaccine count right now. We're going to check in on that. As of this afternoon, more than 570,000 Oregonians have gotten at least the first dose, okay, of the vaccine. Some of those people, more than half actually, have gotten the second dose, but that's people with the first dose, and that puts 13.4% of the state's population with that first shot. In Washington, more than 973,000 people have gotten at least their first dose. That works out to almost 13% of the state's population.
Let's see. We're vaccinating seniors, teachers, medical staff, and inmates here in Oregon. But a lot of essential workers want to know, when's it going to be our turn, especially after all they've been through in the past year?
It has felt like a crusade at times, working in a grocery store.
When the story continues.
And welcome back. Just going through some of your comments and emails. We'll address some of those at the end of the show. Did you know we're on Instagram? Maybe that's your thing. You can follow us at The Story KGW or follow me specifically at Dan.Haggerty. We also launched a weekly newsletter. I love this sort of thing. It kind of keeps you up to speed on everything you might have missed during the show, during the week, if you can't watch every night. Plus some of the stuff that we just can't fit into the show each and every evening. It's delivered straight to your inbox, and we've got an easy way for you to subscribe. Just text STORY to the number on your screen, 503-226-5088, and we will send you a link to where you can sign up. All right, let's check in on how things are going in Salem. Seems like the legislative session has been going pretty smoothly so far, at least, compared to the last couple of years. So let's see what's happening in the Senate chamber today.
I have been informed, Madam Secretary, that the Republicans will not be coming to the floor. I did not expect this. I was not notified of it.
The old ghost not coming in. Was that clip from today? Are we sure that wasn't last year's walkout or the year before? I guess Senator Courtney's mask kind of gave it away. Yeah, Senate Republicans walked out today for the fourth time in 3 years. And no, it's not over cap and trade this time. It's because the governor extended her COVID-19 emergency declaration, which has been in place, as we know, since last March, quite some time now. They released, the Republicans, this statement today, saying today's Senate Republicans are protesting in solidarity with students who want to get back to the classroom, with seniors who are being failed by the vaccine rollout, and with working Oregonians who are struggling to make ends meet. They also want the governor to immediately reopen schools, which we should know she's been saying has been a priority for her. After all, she did put teachers ahead of seniors in the vaccine line. But Republicans say she has the power to order them to reopen now, instead of waiting for districts to decide. They also want more seniors to get vaccinated and allow more businesses to start reopening. We reached out to the governor's office, and they gave us a very statement-y statement saying Governor Brown is using all available tools and resources to respond to the crisis facing Oregonians, which includes getting students back to class, vaccinating seniors, and focusing on economic recovery. They also threw a little shade and said Governor Brown is going to keep going to work every day for Oregonians. She expects all elected officials to do the same. Now, what's not clear in this whole thing is if this is just a one-day thing, a one-day protest, or if they're going to continue to not show up to work, because right now we don't know that. The Senate was going to read through some bills today. They were going to refer them to committees. Every day is important, so I don't want to make it sound like it's not, but it wasn't some big, huge, major disruption today. But if the walkout continues, it will start to cause problems because there are hundreds of bills to get through this session. And if you're thinking, this is deja vu all over again, it kind of is, but, not really. The other three walkouts were a tactic to stop actual votes. This is more of a boycott. As a reminder, last year the Republicans walked out over cap and trade and effectively ended the session, and almost nothing at all got passed. They argued that Democrats were trying to rush that huge bill through a short session, just 35 days, which was a good point, considering the short session wasn't really designed for that sort of work. But that argument rather ignored recent history, considering they also walked out the year prior during a full session. In fact, Republicans walked out twice in 2019, first over public school funding, which ended up passing after they made a deal with Democrats to come back, and again over the first version of cap and trade. That's actually when we got this infamous soundbite from Senator Brian Boquist after Governor Brown threatened to send the state police after these Republicans to bring them back to work.
Send bachelors and come heavily armed. I'm not going to be a political prisoner in the state of Oregon.
That didn't go over well, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Obviously, this has kind of become a favorite tactic for Republicans right now. And it really boils down to the fact that they don't have any sort of majority in Oregon's government. So for them and for the people they represent, they feel this is the only way they can get what they want or stop something that they don't want. Aside from trying to get more Republicans elected, but that's not something they can really do right now. So we'll wait to see if today's walkout continues, and we'll keep you posted on what happens. So what is that really cool saying they say about the postal workers? I always mess this up. It's like, nor snow, nor rain, nor gloom of night, that sort of thing. You know the saying. Basically what it means is, no matter what, they'll be there for you. You'll be connected. Don't worry. They will do the work that is essential to maintain our society. We have learned a thing or two about who is essential over the past year, haven't we? And in light of that, I wrote a little thing tonight for grocery store workers. It goes like this. Neither snow, nor rain, nor historic ice storm and debilitating power outages, nor monumental and deadly wildfires that traumatized this community and blanketed us in toxic and unbreathable air, nor full shifts in masks, coming in close contact with the public every single day, always anxious and wondering who's sick and who isn't, nor altercations with anti-maskers and COVID hoaxers who often pick the checkout line to take a stand against tyranny and science, nor despite it all, still waiting for a vaccine, stays these truly essential people in our lives. We have relied so heavily on the people who stock our shelves and make our food and ring us up, and they feel neglected.
I think that essential workers being put in the last category for the vaccine in the to be announced category and kind of right before the general public, honestly is sort of a slap in the face.
I talked to Margaret Gerrans yesterday. She makes the sandwiches at the New Seasons in the Grant Park area. She's high risk, has worked through all of the stuff I just mentioned in the essential workers creed, and has no idea when she's going to get a vaccine in Oregon. And that's because nobody knows. The OHA and the governor are still kind of working through people 65 and older. They haven't even gotten to people 65 and older. They're still doing 70 and older. And they haven't really discussed exactly what comes next.
It is stressful, and I have seen a toll play out on not only myself, but my coworkers and also the public. So it has kind of been the grand stage for the viewing the whole pandemic. And you see every type of person, from the person who is living on the street to the very, very wealthy. And you see how it has affected everybody.
Now, she makes a good point there, doesn't she, right? And we all know this. The virus affects everybody, which is why everybody has an opinion, their own opinion on the rollout. And her criticism goes back to a familiar place, the decision to prioritize teachers.
It really doesn't make any sense to me to take a part of the population that was successfully quarantining, meaning teachers, and to put them ahead of everybody else. And then push everybody else to the back. And it doesn't mean I don't want teachers to get vaccinated. I do. But school's going to start opening up in April and then May, and then we have summer break. I have a kid in school, so I do see that kids are very, very sad and that this has been stressful for children, but not to be uncaring, but kids can bounce back from that. Seniors who got pushed to the back of the line because teachers were getting vaccinated, if they end up in the hospital and die of COVID, you can't bounce back from that.
Now, look, I know we have covered this argument a lot, all right? But I have kind of a theory about why people can't seem to get over it. So bear with me for a minute. And it comes down to messaging. For about a year, the policy from Salem has been life first. Not restaurants first, not schools first, not sports, not your financial life, your actual life. We've had some of the strictest COVID restrictions in the nation because we wanted to minimize cases and in turn minimize deaths, and it's worked. As of yesterday, we have 2,204 deaths. That's 51 deaths per 100,000 people. To give you some context, at the top of the list, the very worst, New Jersey has 259 deaths per 100,000. Toward the middle of the pack, places like North Dakota with 193 and Texas with 147. In fact, the only states doing better than us are Maine, Alaska, Vermont, and Hawaii. And our population is bigger than all of theirs combined. The plan to put life and safety above all else is working. And every decision from the state has fit that plan until the governor decided to move teachers to the front of the vaccine line. It was the first time that something else, education, became a priority over life and safety. Now, I'm not giving an opinion on that decision one way or another, only why I believe people seem to be so confused by the move and why essential workers who can't decide whether or not they go to work inside with the public are so upset. All right, keep those questions coming. Keep the comments coming. Use that hashtag #HeyDan. We're going to read a couple at the end of the show, which is right after this. And we'll finish the story next. All right, low budget theory hit me up on Twitter. Hey, Dan, if not for the Republicans walking out with the super majority that the Democrats have, what other recourse will they have to show opposition? The entire West Coast is stacked with the left. So they don't have any other recourse. That's kind of the point. And again, the walkout that we're seeing right now isn't to stop any specific vote that the legislature is looking to push through. This is more of a boycott, a reaction to what the governor has done, and that's outside of the scope of the rest of the lawmakers. But again, we'll have to wait and see kind of what happens and if they show back up to work tomorrow. And then Quinky P on Twitter said, "You sound a little congested tonight. Are you feeling okay?" I feel fantastic. And I feel like we should talk about this considering the world we live in right now. But I came into work yesterday, felt completely fine, came in here to do the show in the studio and started sneezing beforehand. Then I left the studio and went home and felt completely fine. And then I came in again today, got to work and started sneezing again. So I've clearly developed an allergy for work. So maybe I need to take a little time off. Nah, not right now. That's the story. I'm Dan Haggerty. We'll see you back here tomorrow.